right, everyone, welcome back. I'm going to call this Destin City Council workshop to order now. Thank you, everyone who's here in attendance and online. We appreciate everyone's input. We're going to I guess we'll do the pledge again, just for the sake of pledging. Councilwoman Aber with the pledge.
Please join me with your hand over your heart. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we will move right along into public comments. Anyone here from the public comments who would like to speak on our workshop topics tonight? Hey. I'm going to hold you to that 3 minutes.
I will be way less than 3 minutes. Monica Wallace, Dustin Water Users, 14 Industrial Park Lane. Just want to let y'all know we had a few things related to utilities in Article 2 that we're working with staff on, one regarding the right-of-way permit and the TRC process, but nothing major, just probably some Scrivener's error type things. So otherwise, it looks good.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here. All right, anyone else? Seeing none, I will close the public comments and we will start the workshop. You taking it away? All right. Oh, Steve-O.
All right, good evening again, Mr. Mayor, council members, city manager. Thank you again. I can't say it enough. I'm going to say it every single workshop because it's important. This is a big deal. So again, thank you all for your support through all of this. Again, another big shout out to my team. We've worked really hard. Our consultants have worked really hard to get us here. And we're one step closer. Tonight we'll get 2 steps closer with this, with Article 1 and 2. So with that, I'll just go ahead and get started. So tonight we're going to cover what is in Article 1 and 2. We're going to a quick, brief overview of the language, format, organization that we've covered in previous workshops. But then we'll get into specifically the big changes in Article 2 with the PUD and the special events. And then we'll get into the discussion topics that we've had at the LPA workshops and other public meetings. So what's in Article 1? It contains pretty much all of what is currently in Article 1 now. We have moved the vested rights, which is currently in Article 2, into Article 1. And there's the newly created citation authority. And that really clarifies the city's ability to cite and enforce this land development code that we are hopefully going to be adopting here soon. Article 2 contains all of Article 2, current Article 2, as well as portions of Article 4, noticing public involvement, and then the boards and committees. 2 big changes. We've added several, well, not 2 big changes, there are several changes, but the 2 biggest, one, like I mentioned earlier, the special event category that is mentioned numerous times throughout the current LDC, but there is actually no process for it. And we ran into that little issue earlier this year with the carnival at the church. There was no process or any sort of review for that type of event going on, and so we utilized the change of use process for that, and we're currently using temporary change of use for some of these events, but it's really better spent having its own process. The next one that we updated, the certificate of appropriateness is commingled with the conditional use. Right now, it's also commingled into the Article 4 with the current Article 4 with the historic districts. And that, the certificate of appropriateness is its own thing, is its own process. And so we've pulled that out and created a section for the certificate of appropriateness as alone. There are a couple of mentions of special exceptions throughout the code. And a special exception is a process reviewed by the Board of Adjustment. Specifically what it does is it allows for, if there's a property that's dual zoned, it allows for one of the zones to be moved 50 feet either side, depending on which zone they want, through that special exception process. And that this process solidifies and actually gives a roadmap to how that works. Further addressing was added as well. And then, like I mentioned earlier, the revamped PUD regulations. So again, language, we've updated the language. We're dropping as much legalese as possible, make it easier for people to read. The format, you'll notice, it's completely changed. It reads easier. Every paragraph, every line, or every section, subsection has a reference to it, which is not something that I can say for the current LDC, which provides for a lot of confusion. And then also the use of graphics was increased as well. Even in Article 2, you'll see a flow chart of the various steps that each process has to go through. So let's jump into the planned unit development regulations. Currently, the way PUDs work now is they're just one massive variance. You can pretty much ask for anything that you want to vary from in the LDC, and so long as it passes City Council for approval, it's approved. There's no standard by which when you cannot ask for a PUD. There's no checks and balances as to what can and can't be asked for. And so it's basically a free-for-all and a hand-me-out to anyone who wants to come here and not follow the regulations if they want to go through the PUD route. The new proposed regulations significantly increase the staff's ability, the city's ability, and city council's ability to have more control over that process. First of all, there is a minimum size of land that you have to have per planning area. Secondly, it's specific on what you can and can't ask for. And then it also requires a public benefit to be provided. And it's by a point system. So PUD has to provide up to 5 points, and there are strategies and objectives laid out in the PUD regulations on which the developers can pick and choose, so long as each PUD request brings in a minimum of 5 points. And you can't use, it's a little confusing without it right in front of you, but you can't use, there are objectives and then strategies within the objective. You can't use more than 2 strategies in one objective to reach your 5 points. All right, special events. Currently, like I stated earlier, there's numerous mentions of special events, special event process, special event approval, special event this, special event that. There is no process, though, for a special event to be approved. Currently, when somebody wants to come in and do something that doesn't fit the bill, we use the temporary change of use process. But again, temporary change of use process is beholden to the current change of use, which is fairly stringent and heavy-handed when it comes to bringing the site up to current development standards. The special event process is just that. It just looks at the special event process. Can it be, or the special event itself, can it be supported on this property? Do they have enough parking? Are they going to be able to provide enough parking? Are they going to be able to provide enough facilities, restrooms, that sort of thing? What is it? How long? And the process in and of itself allows staff and the city council as well to put conditions on approval if and when it's needed and identified. So organization consolidation, I'm not going to read this because one, I can't even read the slide right now because the lettering is so tiny, but it basically is out what each section of Article 2, what's in it from the current article, from the current LDC. All right, before I get into the public workshop and LPA meetings, do we want to discuss the PUD and the special event?
Yes.
The new stuff? Okay.
Let's knock
All
it
right.
out as we show.
Perfect. All right, let's go back to, let's do the PUDs first. So I believe that's section 207, if you all have that in front of you. It's fairly lengthy. Like I said, it's completely beefed up from what we currently have. I think it's a much better process, and it gives us, the city, the ability to better control what can and can't be requested within PUDs. So, any specific questions? What's the minimum acreage, or you said that was 500? Yep. So there's a there's a chart, I can't remember which section specifically, but it's by planning area. And so each planning area, staff went through and looked at the typical lot size of each lot in that planning area, as well as the available vacant parcels. And we put out what we identified as an appropriate amount of land required before you can even request. So let's, I want to say town center mixed use, I think the minimum is 5 acres. That might be Gulf Resort mixed use as well, because they're big lots, right? Those are big lots. We don't want somebody coming in that has 1 acre of land requesting a PUD, and getting whatever it is that they want to get, right? You're not going to be able to do what you want to do through the PUD process, provide those public benefits if you don't have the right amount of the appropriate amount of land. So
That table is on page 42. So it's in Crystal Beach Planning Area, it's 0.75 acres. Seems a little small for me for a PUD, but I'm used to, watercolor, rosemary, 107 acres. I know
Yep.
we're not going to get that here,
Yep.
but it's.
yeah, we tried to balance, like I said, we tried to balance what the average existing size is versus what's available. And 0.75 is kind of where staff landed. Obviously, that's not the end all be all. And
Yeah, because the harbor planning area is 0.5 acres. So you're basically talking a condominium building. Yeah. And that's, I'll just speak for me, that's too small.
Okay.
Village planning area, 5 acres. Okay, Gulf Resort planning area, 4 acres. Okay, Holiday Isle planning area, 2 acres. Town Center Commons planning area, 2 acres. Yeah, the ones that 0.5 acre and 0.75 acre are the ones that really raise my, because, heck, I'm not even sure you could put a good-sized condominium on 0.5 acres, but, that's just my take, is too small. I don't know what the planning department's, what y'all's, how did we end up on a half acre, I guess?
So like I
Let's start
said-
with the smallest one, for
Yeah.
the harbor.
yeah, so we,
The
like I said,
harbor planning area.
yeah, we looked at the sizes of existing lots. And what we looked at those, and then we looked at available lots, developable lots. I don't think there are any in the harbor area. If they are, they're minimal, right? Because this also includes north of Mountain, there's a couple of lots. And so we didn't want to make it so onerous that nobody wants to do the PUD, because we do want to incentivize those public benefits, right? But at the same time, we didn't want to make it to where it's just a give me all. So we tried to balance it.
Yeah, but when you're looking at redevelopment, okay, I guess my concern is, you look at what's developable today for, you can put some of those lots together and it's developable. This needs to last us another 20 years, so it shouldn't be looking at, well, there's only 6 lots down there and the biggest one is, 0.25 acres or whatever, so we don't have to worry about this problem. We do have to worry about this problem, because as we've seen, people will buy old motels or hotels or whatever, and people will buy restaurants or whatever, and just like the Publix guys did, build a process, build land where, okay, we can put something there. So I don't want to make it so small where any condo is coming, or any, half acre is, hey, I want to be my own PUD, and I want to have my own set of rules, and, no, we have our rules for a reason. And I'm not sure how many public benefits you can cram on half an acre. I'll just be honest with you.
Yep. So what do you think? Like 2 acres, 5 acres, 1 acre? Just off the top of your head? 30? We can certainly put 30 if that's the will of the council.
Councilman Destin?
And the one comment I'll make is, you know, at the risk of being blunt, the PUD process is always kind of like a get-out-of-jail-free card. It allows you to just not have to worry about any of the rules and regulations to some extent. If you're going to put more rules and regulations that you can't avoid with a PUD, that's a step in the right direction. But these small lot sizes, we've not accomplished anything if we tailor the PUD part of this LDC to fit any little bitty lot. PUDs, like Jim said, I've experienced them both in this county, Santa Rosa, Walton. PUDs were generally for a big swath of land.
Yep.
Where the benefits you bring in kind of make it worth it.
Yep.
Otherwise, you just don't have to follow the rules. And if you make it so small that it can be shoe fitted, any lot can be, we've not accomplished anything. So we're going to have to come up with a better idea on lot sizes.
Okay.
Is 30 like too grandiose? Is that why you're pulling off from that, Dewey? Is that something that would be too big of an area?
Current proposal at half acre or 0.75 kind of defeats the purpose of what PUDs were supposed to be about. They were supposed to be big enough to bring in some real benefits. There has to be a reason why you don't have to follow the setbacks and all the other rules that are associated. And it has to be a good chunk of land that you affected for. We were part of a PUD in Navarre where we built our restaurant. It collapsed, never was built, but they had common streets. They had a number of things that, were what we would consider a benefit. But if you cut it down to the size of a half acre or 0.75, I don't see that benefit there at all.
So were the majority of lots down there 0.5 or just
Yeah,
kind of off the top of your head?
In Crystal Beach, they're like a little more than a tenth of an acre.
More on the harbor side, I guess.
Oh, on the harbor side, yeah,
well-
they're 2
Okay,
acres, usually about average is what I'm remembering.
okay. Right, anyone else on this? All right, it seems like we're kind of leaning on double it,
Double it.
maybe a little bit more.
I would say 5 acres. I mean,
Is that 5 acres like across the board, just at a minimum all PUDs, or is that for harbor, Crystal Beach, or just anything that's less than 5?
Man, I think like the CRAs, we should be going for maybe a CRA, non-CRA if we want to be easy yet have 2 variances.
I'd stay away from identifying the CRAs because the CRAs are going to go away eventually.
Oh, no, for sure, they'll
So-
sunset. I'm thinking,
yeah.
though, those are our commercial hubs, and if we're looking for big public benefits.
Yeah.
Maybe there's the commercial hubs, CRA or not.
Yeah.
And then the residential.
So like in the harbor and the town center planning areas, we do 10 acres.
I don't know, that.
And then in the residential districts, we drop it to 5.
I would do that rather than leave it where it is right now because it's unrealistic. So if you did push it to that, would that be a good starting point?
Well, what you do is you set it at what it may be, 5 acres, and then they can assemble pieces to make it. Otherwise, you're doing individual lots that are PUDs, which is not an improvement.
Yeah, that sounds like if we're doing 5, that sounds like about 2, almost 3
Okay.
units that they're having to compile.
Staff will make those changes.
All right, any other comments on
Well,
that?
can I ask
Go
a
ahead.
question?
Yep, please.
Yeah, what we approved recently, that they needed a parking lot or whatever for their wedding venue or for their event venue.
Oh, yes.
When they pieced all those pieces of property together, how large were they? You remember? I don't remember that.
I want to say that the pieces on the east side of Calhoun together were 8 acres. And if you couple that with the pieces across the street, maybe 10.
Yeah.
Smaller across the street by the water.
But I would say in the non-harbor area, we might want to look at 10 acres. So 5 and 10, 2 different standards, because to get somebody on one of the bayous could probably, I'm not sure how they would, but buy a few houses, a few of those estate lots or whatever, and then say, I'm going to build a PUD, and I'm going to build 0 lot lines, but I'm going to have a affordable housing component so that I'm going to get a few points here. And I'm like, you're not going to build affordable housing on the bay. No. No offense, but, so I would lean closer to 5 and 10, but I'm amenable. I won't vote for .5 or .75 acres. Because you can't get affordable housing on them, you can't get one walkway, yeah, okay, it's interlocking walkway, we get some bonus here. No, you got one walkway that everybody faces, and that's, so it's
Okay.
So this is basically, we just need to have the change made because nothing's getting approved tonight, but this is why we're here, is to give you.
Yeah,
like,
just
the
give us an
footprint-
idea of the direction that we
footprint
should
of the
go.
5 and 10 acres
Yep.
to be a starting point to where that's better to come out. And then when we're all here and we're voting, things can go a lot smoother.
Yep, exactly.
All right.
I would just make one more comment. You know, Jim talks about the waterfront lots on Bay or Joe's Bio for that matter.
Yeah.
Some of those D-lots, you put 4 of them together, you've got 8 to 10 acres. Now you can have a PUD and you can probably have 15 houses on
Yeah.
it rather than 6 or 8 the other way. So it's got some downsides unless you want to build that many houses and think that's appropriate.
And then I guess just so I understand, this is a newer topic for me, the PUD would still come, is that still consent through the council, or once we
Yep,
put this
it's
through?
a major development.
Okay, and it
Yep.
goes all the way
As,
through.
as soon as you request a PUD, major
Gives them the
development.
option to, but there's still a block, okay.
Yep.
All right.
Yep, so another thing on the PUD, in the town center mixed use zone, or, town center commons, or town center mixed use, if you're proposing multifamily, you have to provide affordable housing, at 80%, or I'm sorry, 20% of your housing stock at 80% AMI, which is your, average mean income of the area. So something that's affordable at 80% AMI, and 20% of those units that you're building need to meet that.
Does that fall in line with the state's Live Local Act? As far as that, those sound familiar as
It's,
far as those
it's
regulations?
more stringent,
Okay, good.
so, yeah.
So they would have, if they can make our cut, they'll be able to make that cut. Okay.
Yep, and that 20% affordable housing would meet your 5 points right there. And you have to do that if you're proposing multifamily in that zone.
Let me just ask one question. In our old development standard we had, a number of years ago, the public benefit was subject to a vote of the council, whether it was appropriate or not. Is there any reason legally, and we'll ask that stand-in over there, that we couldn't put that in the PUD regulation?
So the PUD's got to come to council.
But if we
So-
don't have a standard that we can apply, then it's a joke to come to council. What I'm saying is, the stuff we used to do in the harbor, some of those projects, the public benefit had to be approved by the council, and some projects did not get approved because the public benefit was not, in the council's opinion, beneficial enough. Can we
Yeah,
do
so.
that here?
Yes, so through the PUD process and the public benefits that the developer is going to propose, right? If one of those public benefits, say you need 5, right? Say they offer 7 up, right? And you all deem that all 7 are good, they're good. If you deem that 3 of them aren't good, that only gives them 4 points, and the PUD's got to go, isn't approved. They've got to go back and figure something else out.
That gives it a little more structure to the approval process.
Yes.
But the one we used to use just was, it's good enough or it's not good enough, which did stand up in court a couple of times, I think.
Yeah, and if you look at the objectives and the strategies, they're very specific. There is some leniency and creativity, but there's an intent that you have to meet based on those objectives.
And Councilmember Destin, just to chime in on that, since I'm pretty familiar with the old standards from the Burt Harris case, this is a lot more objective compared to the old standard, which was very subjective. It's much more defensible, in my opinion, when I read through it.
We were very intentional about making it objective, so, yep.
All right.
I'm
set our
trying to
piece on
think
PUD.
of what else in the,
All right.
So now we've got the size.
Read that wrong.
Now let's talk about the public benefit, okay, by the objective. So, and this is why, one of the main reasons I think it needs to be larger. So the objectives, the first objective is open space and natural lands, preserving, protecting, or creating open space and natural lands, which is impossible in my mind on a half an acre, but includes community gathering spaces or public recreation opportunities, such as new trails, Is there a percentage of this? How do we say, okay, we have a community gathering space and it's the size of this dais from there to, there? Is there a standard, a measurable standard that goes along with all these strategies?
No, not necessarily, but I would argue that if you're providing a 10-acre PUD
Yeah.
and you give us 200 square feet of publicly accessible gathering space, that's not meeting the intent of public benefit.
Okay, because where I'm going is, remember the pool and
Yes.
2 developments ago that we approved, right? Or didn't approve, I can't remember. But, that had no parking for the public. Would that pool, would a
So it was the
developer
park,
come into
the
you?
pool was for the residents, the park in
Yeah,
the
park,
swale.
In the swell, yeah.
Yeah.
So would that qualify under this as a public benefit? 'Cause I think it would.
Under the current code, yes, it does. Under the PUD, there's a lot more scrutiny and a lot more ability for us to say, is that really a public benefit? Because this is our intent and this is what we are asking for with the public benefit. So I would argue that they would have to make a very strong argument to convince y'all that that is one of the points that they would receive for public benefit.
See, now it sounds like we're 3 plans ago when we had compatibility was one of our standards. You remember when we had compatibility? Back in the good old days, where you could just say no and so, a developer comes in with the public park that the neighborhoods around there could walk to, but, there's no place to park a car if I want to bring my kid from, 6 blocks over. I just get a little nervous because that wouldn't be a public benefit. in
So
my
then
view.
through that review, through your all's review, it'd say, okay, yeah, this is good, we like the park, but you're not actually serving the entire public. You're only serving a swath of the public.
People
so-
that can walk there.
Yeah, so you could say then, this isn't a good enough benefit, total benefit, and say, we would like 5 parking spaces. But every park does require at least 1 handicap parking space, period.
Okay, because then one of the other strategies would be inclusion of local food production areas, so I know we have a couple of folks that are really high on that, and such as community gardens. Again, instead of a park, he says that area is a community garden. Well, if you live across the street, that's a community garden. But if you live out in Crystal Beach, I don't think that's a community garden. I'm not driving, down to the harbor or down on Stallman to plant a tomato plant that, there's no place to park at, or there's no place, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, but at the same time, you gotta weigh, right? Like if somebody's providing a community garden, right? Is it really, if that is one of their public benefits, right? Just one of what they have to meet of 5, right? Right? So if that is, and when you say community, like I live outside of what is normally considered the Blue Water Bay community, right? And I've told people, hey, I live in Blue Water Bay, and like, oh, where? And I say, oh, off the street north of Blue Water at the light. And they're like, oh, honey, that's not Blue Water Bay. They don't consider me in their community, right? So really, it's perception of community at that point. I would argue that if somebody would provide a community garden, that they are providing a public benefit to the surrounding neighborhood, right? And so, but it's also, again, it's just one of 5 that they have to provide. So maybe that one doesn't meet the total public benefit, but the other 4 do or could.
So on the housing, I get. Yeah, I'm sorry. Okay, on the housing, objective 3, because I don't think there's very few historic places that are going to qualify that they're going to preserve, but on housing. So, and I understand how we get the, 80% of the AMI. Refresh my memory, because there was some discussion a year or two ago in the legislature about the AMI is per county, right?
Generally.
Generally.
Not always, but yeah.
Yeah. They were talking about necking that down because the AMI for this county is a lot lower than the AMI for this city.
Yep.
And so we could say, and I just want to know before we check off on this, is it, when you say the area, let's see, below 80% of the AMI,
You could make it specific to the zip code of 32541.
okay,
Because the Bureau, the Housing Bureau, they do neck it down by zip code.
okay.
So we could make it that specific.
And the lawyer says that's okay?
Yeah, I think that's fine. I don't, is AMI defined in your glossary? It's not.
It's defined at the state level, at least. If not in our glossary, we could add it.
I just think you probably need it somewhere in the
We can
code,
absolutely
if
add it
that's
to the
how it's
glossary.
specific, yeah.
Yeah, because that was where we got in trouble before, not trouble. It's where we may have had some disagreements before. People are gonna put affordable housing.
Yeah.
Remember the donut, where they were gonna build this gorgeous, structure, and they were gonna have 20 or 30 units, I can't remember, right in the middle, that were gonna be affordable housing. They would all be smaller, and they would all be all this other stuff, and then these luxury units would be up top on the harbor and everything. And it's like, that's not affordable housing. Somebody's gonna buy two of those and put them together, or somebody's gonna, and it's,
Yeah, I think there is a deed restriction language in the PUD for that as well. So it would have to remain affordable, so that deed couldn't be changed. I believe it's in there. If it's not, the intent was to put it in there, and we will add it if it's not.
sorry, natural systems consumption, I didn't quite understand that one, but the other one, it has a specific goal, objective, or policy of the adopted comprehensive plan. So it has a master plan, or it helps implement the master plan. That's our master plan, right?
Yes.
Not the developers. 'cause
Correct.
The developer's master plan is to make as much money
Yeah,
as they can.
it would be our it has to.
I just want to make
Yep,
sure.
Yep.
Okay, that's all.
Anything further? Yep. Jump on
One
in.
quick observation. To get into this at all, we have to make the decision that the benefits are worth having a PUD at all.
Correct.
I've been in many communities and counties, they don't allow PUDs. When I said, you got PUDs here? They said, what's that? They grow in the ground? And so do we think that the benefits we can reap are worth PUDs, which give you, the ability to just not have to follow rules? That's a decision.
That was certainly something that staff did discuss internally, but being that we have the process now, we figured keep the process, but make it something that actually provides something that's of value to the community. So if that's a value choice that we don't want PUDs in the city, that's absolutely something that we could do.
All right. Anything else before I get it wrong twice? All right, now we can move on.
All right.
Special events.
Yeah, special events. Some of you all might be familiar with the church carnival. Honestly, at the end of the day, staff was just, we didn't have clear guidance per the LDC on what to do. So what do we need to do when we do that, right? We need to come to the people that make the decision for the community. So we felt that the best process at that point was to bring that discussion to City Council for review, just to ensure that all eyes were on it and we captured everything that we could. So this special event process does that. It codifies a regulation, it codifies a process for us to be able to do that. Simple as that.
Any questions on that? Yep, go on.
My question is, let's go back to the church example. Churches do a lot of things. They have vacation Bible school in the summer. They do a number of things. Have we got it tightened down that they have to get a special event permit for each one of those things? What is the degree at some point when you have 500 cars or 500 people coming, I can see that we need to see what they're doing. Is there a plateau? Is there some reasonableness to what we're going to tell them they have to get a permit for?
There is applicability language in the special event regulations that state what is and is not, or what is a special event permit. I would argue to say that Vacation Bible School does not count as a special event. Yep. And I know one of the discussion points for that carnival at the church was, hey, this is a church. We shouldn't be regulating that. We shouldn't be looking at that. And so that's another reason why we wanted to obviously bring this up. Is that something that the council wants to exempt from special event review? Is events at churches?
My personal inclination is probably yes, until it gets to the size that it's going to be a impact on the community, which arguably is somewhere, just where.
Is what? I'm
I
sorry.
said, the argument, till we get to the size where it has a community impact, that's pretty onerous.
Yeah.
And of course, the standard is the important part, where is that size?
Yeah.
But in general, I feel very reluctant to be regulating those kind of activities at churches, you know. So we'll have to look into the details and decide when we adopt.
Yeah, something like, my son goes to Wednesday nights, he goes to middle school Bible with his middle school. They do things outside, they do events outside, they do football, they do all, that sort of stuff would not qualify as a special event. The carnival for 10 days, bringing upwards of 500 people a day through residential neighborhoods, that's obviously going to cause a huge impact on the surrounding homes and residences. So is that something that would rise to the level of not being exempt? So,
And we put any hard, fast regulations where we can say, yes, this is it, and no, that's not it.
sure, the tablet is clear. So, if you want to say 100 people per day, right? Is if you have 100 people or less, you're not on special event. If you have 101 or more, you are.
Yeah.
Right? You could make that delineation, absolutely. Or you could do, if you want to operate after 8 p.m., there's several things that we could add in there. If that's the direction that you would like us to go.
Well, that's the direction that I
Okay.
would like to go, so we'll have to see what those standards would be.
Okay.
Councilor Schmidt?
Yeah, I was kind of going along those same lines of questioning to understand what the special events are. And so maybe that kind of helped answer it. Because when I read it, we're not really defining what a special event is.
If in the applicability, it says you will meet the need to become a special event and go under this permit if you meet these criteria.
The standards of approval,
No, in the applicability.
applicability. Gotcha. 210. Sorry, my eyes have been hurting. 210.03. Okay, so that's where it specifies what a special event could be.
Yep.
And then Mr. Destin was saying, beyond that, maybe actually listing out some stuff, is that?
Well, I think and correct me if I'm wrong, Councilman Dustin, the intent was to exempt churches unless you exceed these levels, correct? Right, all right. So you're a special event if you do that, but if you're a church, you're not unless you say are expecting 100 people or more a day, or you want to operate past 8 p.m., or XYZ.
Right. So 210.03, it's just very vague wording though, right?
It's
I mean,
it's
not trying to like
yeah, but
break
it's
anybody's knees or anything.
well, but at the same time, it's like
What is a special event?
how are you going
Ludicrous
to?
concert versus, I mean, right? I mean,
Yeah, no, but it's like it essentially at the end of the day, if you don't have the use approved on that property, right, through a development order, and it's going to be a temporary thing, rather than going through a temporary change of use, which
There's a process now.
which there is a current process for right now that we have, but through that process, through the change of use process, you're required to bring your site up to current standard.
Right, so like.
This is just a temporary event that
Yeah.
shouldn't have to, the church or the property owner shouldn't have to bring it up to current standard,
Right.
you know, for access way, for,
Correct. So this is more for, like, we'll still have something maybe start to be planned and possibly pop up.
Mm-hmm.
But now, if this is in place, we have a process to tell them,
Mm-hmm. Correct.
hey, I'm sorry you didn't know this, but you should have done this. Here's a process. Is that, I
Mm-hmm. Yes.
mean, like, because we're not gonna list out all the options of what, especially.
no, so say somebody comes like, hey, I've got this question, I wanna put on a circus
we have a
display
process.
style event in the parking lots of the Dicks, right? Okay, well, let's take a look. What's your plan? Can you send us a rollout of what your operation is, right? How long? How many people do you expect? What's your average operating hours? You know, all that sort of stuff, right? We can take a look at that and we can like, okay, this is going to require a DO amendment, or maybe it doesn't rise to that level. Maybe it's just a special event.
Yeah, okay.
Councilwoman?
Yeah, I'm fine. Maybe, you know, like Mr. Destin said, I mean, we can have a special event at the elementary school, and we'll have 3,000 people up there for 5 hours, blocking streets. You know, Halloween night in Keller Gardens is a special event. I mean, people are running across the street, almost getting run over, right? So I don't want to police everything and have government involved in all that stuff. I just also want to.
But if people are about to get run over, I mean, you want to be closing down streets, right?
I know.
Like,
I mean, like a one-night event at an elementary school, like we want that stuff.
yeah, and that's
But
like
should they still
like to
come-
the
should
church
they come
event.
up here to the city and
But to
file a
the
special event permit?
to the exemption thing, like the churches, you could say that if it's at the school, right, where I mean,
They should have
massive
their own
amounts of people
process, right,
already, massive amounts of people already
Maybe we should
go
look
to.
at schools too, as well as the churches, because they would, I mean, my opinion, I mean, I'm a religious person, but the schools are gonna follow under the criteria of the Okaloosa County School District and their processes, and, you know, Faith Church or whatever, it might not have the same standards, but
Yeah.
I would at least consider the schools as well as while we're talking about exemptions and things,
Mm-hmm.
because they're gonna have a lot of very strict requirements already
Yep.
dealing with that in the past, so.
Luckily, they're all blue on
Thanks
the
for the
map.
explanation.
They're all institutions. Yep, Councilwoman Aguirre.
Well, I was on the same track as Kevin, because I was going to say, there's a lot of times when the elementary school is having a huge event, or the middle school, they've got the football game behind them, so you've got the schools that have events that sometimes are hundreds of
Yeah.
people. So at least giving them some sort of a way to know what's the way we can keep them safe and their people safe during a big event where there's a lot more people, so we can at least encourage, okay, this is a big event, we need to make sure we have Okaloosa sheriffs out there to help
Yep.
the roads.
And that's,
all.
and that was also part of the reason for the special event was because it has to be reviewed by Destin Fire, it has to be reviewed by Okaloosa Sheriff, right? But a football game where there's a football stadium built into the development order, again, that event would not kick in a special event, a track meet, a baseball game, all that sort of stuff. It's just like the DO for the Morgan Sports Center, right? Like, that's the expected impact. The church, or I'm sorry, the school was the expected impact. It comes with the ancillary uses of the sports stuff. And so that's all considered in the impact of the development order and therefore would not qualify as a special event.
Just a question, Seafood Festival, for example, will that be subject to a special event?
You know, I think there's an argument to be made that that's been going on for so long, that could be granted, if anything, legal nonconformity, or it's in the festive marketplace, and it is what it is.
Well, we could make that argument for the festivities that goes on at the churches and schools and all of those too. So I want to make sure that we're not going to do some kind of a negative impact on something like that.
Yep.
Just a thought.
Yep.
Right? Anyone else? Councilman Bagby?
So you have sometimes 60 days and 90 days, you know, that they have to actually apply, or what happens when they come in at 58 days? Where is other than going to the BOA, is the next paragraph or section or whatever for the appeals, where is common sense applied to this?
If it's something super simple, so I actually ran into this actually last week.
Okay?
So there have been a whole lot of requests for weddings on the beaches, okay? Especially during turtle nesting season. Okay, so we had no regulations, we had nothing, but we still need to be able to partner with our partners that survey the beaches, right? Let them know, hey, these events are coming along. Hey, sheriff office, there's gonna be, 50 people, there's gonna be 100 people coming to this area, right? How is that gonna impact the parking? How's that gonna impact the congregation on the beach, right? So we developed a beach event permit review, right? And we developed it, and it's gotta be submitted 90 days in advance, okay? Obviously, an event that has 30 people, do we really need 90 days, right? Staff can be commonsensical about that approach, but if it's a big event and it's going to require review, like a significant amount of review by the sheriff's office, a significant amount of review by the fire department, we're gonna have to draw the line somewhere.
Well, that was what my question really is who draws that line? Because one of my questions when we get back into the administrative portion in the first couple of sections, it says the city manager or designee, okay? Like every other paragraph. Do we have to do that in writing? Do we have to do that, by resolution? Because, a lot of these sections are gonna say city manager or their designee, and it's not always gonna be the community development director or the, assistant city manager or whatever, or I wanna know because I don't worry about so much, okay, here's our rules, we're much better, okay? But if we don't enforce our rules.
Yeah.
Or, everybody and their brother has override authority because they're just, being common sense. Well, it's only 105 people. It's not, much over 100. So I'll, 30 days beforehand, down where there's 10 public parking spots. I mean, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, and so all those variables would be looked at, and it wouldn't be a staff member like me making that decision, right? It would be the city manager, unless the city manager abdicates that to the community development director. Or maybe the city manager is not comfortable making that decision, and he says, let's take it to council, right? So there are checks and balances across it all. But again, at the end of the day, if it's something that's, right, I want to be down here for my wedding, there are going to be 20 people at most, we're going to do it at this house, and everyone staying within walking distance.
Yeah.
Does that really need 90 days of review, right? However, on the flip side of that, hey, I want to put on a concert, and say it's at one of the bigger resort that has one of the larger beaches, right? Well, what process by which do we have currently that would allow that? None, I would argue, other than the temporary change of use. And that is that's a staff level review approved by the community development director, right? And so if that needs to be made, if that's an impact, if the community development director isn't comfortable making that because the city manager has abdicated that authority to them, they go to the city manager. And if city manager is like, okay, this is a big deal, I need more input. Or I'm just going to ask city council whether or not they agree with me or not, right? And so all those are built in no matter what process we have currently.
Here's my dilemma, and I understand what you're saying. The wedding planners, they all know each other, they all talk to each other, okay?
I don't know what you're talking about.
And so if I go to Steve, I only really have to turn it in 30 days.
There's no Steve that works here.
Huh?
No Steve that works here.
Yeah, okay. I only have to turn it in 30 days beforehand, and if I tell them I'm gonna have more than 100, then I'm gonna have to have additional review. So what I'm gonna tell them is I'm gonna have 75, there's only gonna be 75 invited guests, even though I know the bride's inviting 100 and the groom's inviting 100, but I can get my application approved in 30 days with minimal review if I tell them 75. And I just, one of my things this year is stop doing integrity checks on these people. Just make it clear cut, whether they're developers or wedding planners or whatever, and say, send code down, count, okay? You don't get any more weddings approved on these beaches because you've lied to us, and we're going to withdraw your ability to do that. There's got to be some consequences.
If you look inside the citation authority,
Yeah,
there is regulations speaking just to that.
okay. And that's.
If there's multiple violations, the first violation is X, the multiple violations after.
Okay.
Then there are steps that we can take. And since it is a special event that was approved by city, Okaloosa County, Sheriff's Office, Fire District, if it exceeds what was approved, we have the authority to shut it down.
Okay,
We have the authority to shut it down. So,
okay.
yeah, so yeah, we've
And
tried
that's on their
to,
application process? That's on their little checklist in big bold letters
we
at the
can
bottom?
put it in there, absolutely.
Yeah.
We can absolutely put that, yeah.
Yeah.
We can absolutely put that in there. But, just to make another point, like, you could use that exact same argument that you just made with pretty much any application. 414 Main, prime example, right?
Yep, sure is.
So they give us what they give us, right? If it meets code, we can't not approve it if it meets code.
Right.
Right? So it's, at the end of the day, we have to be able to build in the ability to enforce, right?
Okay.
So, and we think we've done that.
Okay. And then I noticed you referenced the noise. Is it still going to be in section 14?
The noise ordinance isn't moving.
Okay, descriptions of all performances at the event, including any activities involving noise production exceeding what is permitted by Chapter 14, Article 2, Noise of the City Code of Ordinances. So that's all going to stay?
Yep, that's not moving.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
That was, one of my question was, how are you going to enforce it, especially if you say, oh, then they only have to go 90 days if they're the big parties and 30 days if they're the smaller ones? Because, yeah, you got wedding planners. So is that also part of what your enforcement will be, that wedding planner that helped organize this has broke the rules, therefore that is a planner we don't want to do business with because,
Well, we can't necessarily say we can't do business with you, and at the end of the day, it's the property owner's responsibility. But we do put in, like currently with the special beach event permit that we have a security contact if you have 30 or more people
Right.
that has to be on site and is the point of contact for the event if it's called. Right? And so that person would be essentially the person responsible for us to go meet, but at the end of the day, the citation would still go to either the property owner and or the event coordinator. Yep.
Right?
I had one more question on so church on the beach, I know we talked about churches. It's just on Sundays. It's every Sunday.
At Henderson Beach?
Yeah.
That's on state park land.
I'm sorry, no, down by James Lee. There's one.
then that's county.
Okay. Hypothetically, Jesus Christ.
Hypothetically, if it's a regular event, we would ask that they either, if it were to happen on private property, like say somebody with a big beach on a condo or other development, and they want to do church on the beach every Sunday, I would say if it's going to be a regular event, come in and get a DO amendment.
Okay,
And
So
that way
that-
it's
that
built
would be
into
our
the DO
solution.
and they don't have to go through the special event every single time. The special event is literally just for that, for the one-off event, the once or twice a year that year. If it's going to be a regular, so the car show over here at the Palms, every year since I've been here, they've submitted 2 temporary change of use permits every single year. And it's just like, we told them, just get a DO amendment. It's a minor DO amendment, just come in and get it done. And they finally did it.
okay.
Oh, good.
They finally did it. Yeah, they finally did it. So if it's something where it's a regular thing, we would just ask them to come in and do the DO amendment. So the special event wouldn't even be applicable. Cool.
All right.
All right.
Slide in.
Let's get into the, uh-oh. Okay, public workshops. So these are the various public workshop or public meetings that we went to. As you can see, this Article 1 and 2 was one of the early, it's actually the first two that were reviewed and had a recommendation from the LPA, July of last year. We were waiting for the rest of the articles to kind of get through the process and develop the roadmap through, and we got there, and this is where we are now. So. All right, the first discussion point, it is recommended that the final action for major subdivision be the local planning agency. The LPA recommended that they be included in the review of major subdivisions, but that they be a recommending body to city council for final approval. So therefore, the way our major subdivision process is built in, that the subdivision would come to the LPA for recommendation for approval to city council, rather than it coming straight to city council with no LPA review.
Yeah, everyone good? Yes, nodding yeses. If we, hypothetically, if they go through LPA, they get to us, and then we go, we don't like half of it, like, we're basically asking them to re-go. Is it a full rewalk through? Okay.
Yep,
Okay.
yep, it goes back through the chain. All right, same thing with major developments and deviations. It was recommended that they be the final approving authority on those. LPA made the recommendation they be a reviewer, because they currently are not. And then they be a recommending body to city council. Okay. All right, Harbor and Waterways Board review. So right now, without the solid number, I'd say 9 out of 10 Harbor and Waterway Board reviews are residential. Many of them are self-certified, very minor permits, minor proposal for development, marine development. And so part of the whole review of this through the marina siting that was also looked at several years ago, but never made it past the LPA, was to take a look at how the city reviews Harbor and Waterway Board applications. And so through the work that we've done through the LDC and then with the Harbor Waterways Board, it was decided to create 3 categories. So Cat 1 category is essentially residential docks that meet self-certification, or any exempt project at the state level that meets self-certification, or seawalls that are upland on the property line and or upland, a couple other minor marine projects. Those Category 1 projects would just go straight to marine construction permitting and not to the Harbor Waterways Board review, okay? Category 2 is residential docks that do not meet self-certification, seawalls that are not exempt and or are waterward of the mean high water line or the property line. And so yeah, so docks, residential docks with 3 to 9 slips would be Category 2. And that would go to the Harbor Waterways Board for review and recommendation to City Council, and then it would still be left on consent at City Council level, okay? Anything that's not Cat 1 or Cat 2, if it's a non-residential development, multifamily residential, or if it's a residential slip that has 10 slips or more, it would be a Category 3. We're still require that public meeting in front of Harbor Waterways Board and a public meeting in front of City Council rather than consent agenda.
I have a question. How would a residential be 10 slips? Is that like a condominium being residential?
No, that'd be multifamily, so that would be
Okay.
category 3.
All right.
There
10
are docks, not necessarily here in Destin, but it's not a foregone conclusion that it won't happen. They could request a 10-slip dock if they wanted to. I mean, some people have 10 car garages, so.
And then, with that seagrass, is that, talking about sea walls, I know seagrass also involves state permitting, but where does that fall in our categories?
So if it's self-certified, right, there's certain criteria the state has, 1,000 square feet, 2 slips or less. It can't be in a,
I'm sorry, for planting seagrass, not necessarily a.
planting
Yeah,
seagrass?
Yeah, versus a seawall being a.
Oh, you're talking
boundary.
about a living sea line? or
Yeah,
a living
yeah,
seashore?
in lieu
Okay.
of seawall.
I guess it's something we'd have to think about. I can't imagine, as long as it's happening upland, it's not really a marine project. If they're going outside of their property, that's state waters, and they would
Yeah.
have to engage the state with that. And so therefore, if the state gets involved in any sort of review, rather than a self-certification, then it would be at least a Cat 2, if it would require our review at the end of the day. But I would argue that someone just planting seagrass outside their property with state approval wouldn't meet the need for Harbor Waterways Board review.
Okay, yeah, I just wanted to see where we were at with that.
Okay.
All right.
The self-certification, is it 500 square feet or 1,000?
It's 1,000 for, I'm failing to find the term for the protected waters.
Which are Joe's Bio?
No, we don't have any protected waters here in Destin.
Yet.
We did have at one time, but
Yeah.
maybe they're gone.
Yeah. I'm failing to find the term, but yeah, it's 1,000 in unprotected waters, and it's 500 in protected waters.
Okay, and so if you go over that size, then you've got a whole nother level of state review, correct?
And federal review.
That's right, the Corps. Okay, so if they're gonna do their reviews, right now, how do we stand? Okay, I'm gonna build a 1,200 square foot on my residential lot. I have to go through the special reviews of the DEP and the Corps, and then at this time, does it then also have to go to Waterways?
Yeah, so before they apply for the Harbor Waterways Board
They have to get the
review,
others.
they have to submit the application to both state and
Right.
ACE and show us proof of that. And the plans that they submit to both of those have to be the exact same as the one that they submit to us. If they aren't, we'd stop it there. But they would get the approval, the recommendation from Harbor Waterways Board, and then if it's a residential dock, less, 2 slips, then it would be the consent agenda on council, and then you all would be that approver for it, right? But they still couldn't submit for the marine construction permit until we receive, or until they have the approval from FDEP and ACE.
What's ACE?
Army Corps of Engineers, sorry, US Army Corps of Engineers, my
Yeah,
apologies.
so what,
I apologize, thank you.
yeah. We've done them, so are we actually simplifying the process with this?
Yes, we are, because right now, anything has to go through Harbor Waterways
That's
Board
what I
review.
thought. Well, God bless simplification.
Push the priority button. Yeah, I was just gonna say, I'll talk to you guys offline with a local group that does a lot of permitting for seagrass. I just want to make sure that we have a simplification version for those that are just trying to protect their land as far as the seawall, and have just as simple of a process on our side to make sure that we're not, so just.
Sure.
That's my one take from this section.
Sure.
Yep.
All right.
Are Class 2 waters considered the protected?
I'd have to look that up. I don't know off the top of my head.
Maybe,
Because it's clear in the self-certification, there's a whole presentation that the state has. I've got the PDF downloaded onto my computer somewhere, and it states if it's class water this, class water that, then you're 1,000. If it's class water this, you're 500. So yeah, I'm, sure.
Seeing nothing further?
All right. That's it.
All right. Larry, you got anything?
I had a question.
Yeah.
On the LPA section, or maybe one of the other ones, it only included one, two boards, the LPA. I guess those are the ones that are specifically in regarding, into Article 2. Is that why only those boards?
Yeah, I failed to put the Harbor Waterways Board up there as well.
No, not that section,
but-
the actual administration of the board, and it's listed in Article 2.
Every board is listed in Article 2.
Would this be a good time to concise on?
So is like, one, maybe this is the wrong time to talk about boards and committees and stuff.
No, I was going there anyways.
So, but that particular one, for example, like the definition of a quorum, would this be the time that we could update what the definition of a quorum means, for example? Is it in this? Is that?
Kyle?
I think that's in the code of ordinances, those definitions, but I'm not entirely sure. You could,
I mean.
Like in the
it-
section, it says the procedure, and one A was quorum is that.
But if we still have seven-member bodies, right? It has to be at least a majority of people. Like, that's the definition of quorum, period.
Right,
So,
but I've seen other entities or organizations or bylaws that then have a section about a different way to measure quorum, or if quorum's not met, what can be done to establish a quorum the same night type of thing. One of the common problems that we always hear about our committees, which is a whole other discussion I guess we'll have at some point soon, is quorum being met. So I just didn't want to miss out. If this is the chance to define that, I want to make sure we do that.
I don't know,
Okay. Maybe we just check into it.
I mean,
I don't want to miss out.
I don't know how else to calculate quorum. If you have 7, you need at least 4.
Right.
I mean, that's you go back to the base literal
Well, there's-
translation of
there's,
Latin and quorum.
One
It's-
example I've seen is, members of a board, right? To be a member, you have to do A. So then that night, you would have to do that particular thing, whether it's monetary or whatever. So whoever shows up that night, this is probably not what this board would do, but just as an example, that night, people show up, they pay $1, their dues or whatever, and that's the general members for that meeting.
Oh, okay, I
Or
see.
that. So,
Well, that's-
I don't know, it's outside the box. I'm
Yeah,
just-
no, okay, I see where you're going. That's
I'm
not
just trying
defining,
to-
that's not redefining quorum. That's a different way of getting quorum.
Yeah.
Okay,
Well, I just am hoping that we don't miss out on an opportunity to figure out how to.
yep. I mean,
Quorum
we
at these
could,
meetings.
we can have that discussion now. Because, yeah, committees are part of this, of this
All of the
article.
committees?
All the committees are in there. They're in section 216.
216, there they are, LPA, BOA.
Yeah, because I would say to that matter, if we're not getting quorum, they probably aren't feeling empowered, / maybe we have too many. Can we consolidate responsibilities? I feel like we have like,
But not all on here, like recreate parks and stuff's not on here. And
Well, that's a special committee, right?
Gotcha.
if I could just jump in real quick, Kevin.
Come on,
the
man.
Chapter 2, Article 2 of the code, not the land development code, but the code of ordinances, is generally where the procedures and stuff for committees and boards are found.
Chapter 2.
I would say to your point, something I could think of off the top of my head, and it really doesn't need to be anything for me, but potentially the next one, if we could get one more person as an elected body, the mayor doesn't have a spot for this, that would just allow one more person at each committee and still have a quorum of 4, because now we're going even. And, recommendation tied, it's still a recommation. You need 5, 5 plus 1?
yeah.
Okay, well, me and my math.
7 to
Yeah.
5.
Yeah, well, never mind. I was just trying to think of an easy way to get one more person to show up.
Condense some of these.
I'm all favor condensing half our committees.
What about the Harbor Waterway Board's membership shall include? Do we follow that by law?
Yes,
Or
we
by
do.
rule? So a layman, a sports fisherman, environmentalist, like we're assigning those particular positions.
Yep.
That's fantastic. Pleasure boat owner. I've never actually.
And one member
I hate to
can-
say it, I never actually looked that closely at those
One,
requirements. Those
one
are-
mem,
those are
one
interesting.
member can take 2 roles.
Okay. I could be a sports fisherman and a commercial fisherman, for example, I guess, yeah.
Or a layman and a sport fisher.
Do we need to, well, that board, never mind.
Jim?
Firmly
Staff's
believe
done
in
with our stuff, so.
empowering the committees, and I think we have 3 boards, committees, whatever, that look at the harbor area. So, if we wanted to do some consolidation, I'd be happy to do that. You guys did a great job simplifying, but there's a couple of areas that I would ask that we look at to maybe go back and simplify it. One of them is the notice procedures for public hearings.
Okay.
Okay, so if you go to page, for those of you who have it pulled up, I think it's page 6. All right, because we have 10 days, we have 7 days, we have 24 hours, we have, let's see, 10 to 21 days, 5 to 8 days, 10 days again. I would just ask why we can't do, and maybe there are some statutes that say as long as, it has to be this, but 10 days, I get to 21 to 10 because you've got to let them notice, but 10 days probably ought to be our standard. That gives everybody plenty of time, because I can't believe that we don't have more that we miss, where, we didn't actually, this is one we should have given them 10 days, but we only gave them 7 days. Administratively, it just seems like a mishmash of who's keeping track of this.
So I'll tell you the reason why the 21 and 10 days is added. It's a maximum of 21 days
Right.
before and a minimum of 10, right?
Right.
Because what we don't want to have happening is somebody posting a sign 6 months before anything,
Right,
or an ad going out 6 months before anything, and then meeting the minimum 5-day requirement per state statute and putting the second ad in. And everyone saw it 6 months ago, completely forgot about it, and then 5 days later, 5 days before the meeting, they're like, but they met legal requirement because they had it 10 days prior, at least.
yeah.
By meeting the 6 months.
But see,
So
that one, we could do 10 to 21, and I understand why it's 21, and then you could do 5 to 10, as opposed
Yeah.
to 5 to 8. How did we land on 8? Because we didn't want to,
because we didn't want the first ad to go out on the 10th if they meet the minimum for the first one, and then the very next day, the second one happening.
yeah. But,
We didn't
okay,
want that happening.
Why not 7? Or,
Or-
I'm just, because the notice to like the media, what is that, 24 hours? The local media gets informed? Let's see, it's here. It just seems confusing for all these to be different times, and it could be simplified.
Okay, staff will take a look at that to see what simplifications we can make.
On the local media, okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm assuming that just means the newspaper that no one gets. Can we, I know that's state statute, can we add to that?
Yeah,
Because I would love for it to be some kind of online, something digital that I could actually read for once, because unless I'm driving by and seeing a public notice, there's no way I'm getting it.
yeah, we've talked about putting it up on social media as if it's not already being done.
Yeah, because I know that happened with that last public notice with the land vacate that turned into
There
a
is a
crap show.
there is a digital state repository for public notices as well, that we're not required to do because we post in the newspaper and print and digital. So whatever other ideas you have for digital posting.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking, I mean, I know it's hard online as far as creating a requirement, but some kind of minimum following threshold of a group or media platform that is designated local and going from there.
Like
I
the
mean,
website of the newspaper. Sorry.
You might as well. No, two separate, two separate.
So just two different outlets
Yes,
then,
yeah,
instead of
well,
just one?
Yeah, I know we got to satisfy the state statutory of a newspaper
Yeah,
circulation.
yeah, we can absolutely make it two outlets.
Yeah.
Like, that's not a problem. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
'cause
if
even-
that's a direction that the council wants
Yeah, I
to
would
go
just
with.
add
with
something
two
of
different
that
notice.
nature on there.
Okay,
Yeah, and then whatever we can do, I know maybe more staff protocol than maybe on the administrative side, but something that allows us to, online at least, get the word out first.
so-
Before
so-
questions and chaos
yep, so
emerge.
we've been working with Tamara.
Yeah,
We
and I know we were taking care
started initial discussions about doing a fact sheet for every development or every project that comes forward for a public hearing. And then also as part of the public noticing in other locations where I've worked at, there had to have on the sign a weatherproof box, and it had to
like the
stay
real estate.
stocked
Yeah.
with it. Like, staff would stock it initially, but then it was on the applicant to keep it stocked.
Perfect.
So that people walking by or driving by, they could hop out, pick out that, and then it would just basically be the rundown, one-sheeter of what's going on.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
the sort of stuff that we're investigating.
Perfect,
So,
okay.
the sky's the limit.
Yeah.
So we could absolutely do QR codes.
Yeah, then Xerox and copies, yeah, paper that might get wet in the storm.
I've worked in some pretty wet environments before, and the weatherproof boxes work pretty well. So, and it's some people we hear it all the time. I had 2 customers in the lobby today. I'm computer illiterate. I don't have a phone. I don't do this. So they won't be able to access it with a QR code. So.
Okay, so, on page 6, here's what I was talking about. Number 4, all public hearings shall also be posted on the City of Destin website not less than 10 days prior to the hearing or meeting. Okay. Very next one. All noticed public hearings or meetings will be posted in a conspicuous place in City Hall at least 7 days prior to the hearing or meeting. Notice will be given to the appropriate media representatives at least 24 hours before all public hearings, public meetings, and workshops.
Yep.
So
And
those
so-
could all be 10 days. I didn't understand 6A. I think this may be one of the Scrivener errors that DW pointed out, because 6A says workshops may be held without the 7-day notice, which seems like it would be its own number because it's not referring to the media representatives that are mentioned in 6. And then in 7, we get back to the 10-day advance notice must be provided to any person, group, agency, or government that registers to receive notice. So why don't we just, for at least those 4 or 5 paragraphs, just do 10 days? It's like we're bouncing all over the place.
10, 10, 10. Done.
Any other comments, general questions, good of the order?
I give that comment a 10.
All right, public comments. Hope you were taking notes.
Steve, you can stand up here, because you can help me. We're going to talk about quorums.
I'm walking away now.
Yeah. And I'm going to talk to you as a former city council member, and I'm going to talk to you, hopefully, a future city council member. The quorums are not happening because people have been absent from these meetings for 2 years, and that councilman has not taken that into an issue and called that person and said, if you can't attend, you don't need to be here. You need to be someplace else, and we need to appoint somebody else. Coming into a meeting, staying 10 minutes and then leaving so your name is on the agenda as being present. That's happening. If they don't want to be there, let them resign. But I can't do that. I can't talk to them. Only their council member can talk to them. Steve was telling me the other day, because we had a Harbor CRA meeting about our master plan, you would think we'd all want to be there. Well, somebody had to leave early. Had to cancel because of an issue came up. Can we make that a mandatory workshop with the rest of the people there? We can still give opinions. We don't have to vote on anything, but we can still give opinions. We can still pass it on to you, and the meetings can still go on. What you're getting is no quorum. You don't understand why there's no quorum. I don't think Ray's putting on there, so-and-so didn't respond, or this one didn't, this one responded no, this one didn't respond at all. You're not getting that detail. You're just saying no quorum. So you don't know why there's no quorum. But basically, it's because there's a lot of people that don't want to be there. They were appointed because somebody appointed them. And I've even asked the question, why are you here? If you can't attend the meetings because it interferes with your work time, the Harbor CRA has so many boat captains on it, not one of them can meet the time regulation. So we're hamstrung with that. In fact, they've even said, why can't we make it 7 p.m.? Well, I understand. Staff doesn't want to sit around here till 7 p.m. to have a meeting that's going to last 2 hours. I get that. But somehow we've got to balance that when we appoint people and talk to them about this is the requirement, this is what's going to happen. And if you can't meet that, okay, that's fine. Be a supporter, come when you can, but don't be on the committee. When Mr. Bagby appointed someone on the Parks and Rec Committee because his person resigned, we haven't missed a meeting yet. They want to be there. They want to do it. So the chair people of each one of the committees and the committee members can help you find other people. You can call each one of them and say, help me find somebody that wants to be here, that meets the requirement. Because they're there. They're out there. And I talked to 2 people today, and they said, oh, we'll be glad to serve on a committee. I said, fill out the form. We'll get you on a committee. But I think that's what the breakdown is. You guys aren't hearing all the information that the committees are putting out there because it just says no quorum. It doesn't say why. It doesn't say where they are. It doesn't say 5 people refused or did not respond to the invitation. Steve's real good about sending the invitation out 2 weeks in advance. None of the other committees follow that procedure unless they're under Steve, which unfortunately he has most of them, so he has to stay here. He's doing numerous hours of overtime. I think it needs to be doled out to other people. That's what's happened in the past. But that way, there is more energizing power on it. But when you have someone who hasn't attended in over a year, but you only know no quorum, no quorum, no quorum, you don't even know who that is. So I think to be fair with everybody, people are there, they're willing.
Thank you.
So my name was called out, and I replaced a couple, okay? And I think I came to you every time I replaced people because you sat on those 2 committees. I don't need to know why there was no quorum. All I need to know is my person wasn't there. And after they missed 3, I call them and I say, look, if you can't make it, that's fine. And Mr. Leesfeld, we had a great conversation. I've seen him 20 times since then. And he said, oh no, I'm gonna, business has pulled me away. He missed the next 2. I said, I'm sorry. And he says, no, you're right. I just can't commit to it. And they know they've made a commitment and that they're not meeting their commitment. And you just say, and then we had somebody the next meeting, same thing with the other lady. They want to come, the people want to come. Sometimes they overextend themselves. I think we all do that, have done that at times. But they want to help the city. So I think we may need a monthly report of people that made, not just once a quarter, because it's too easy to go.
We do receive a report as to whom did not respond, and we keep that, we include that as a non-responsive, and we do report that to you guys.
Yeah, we get the
So,
list.
especially community development, they have like 5 committees, and we do get a report from their AA regularly. So they give a 2 weeks notice, and if they have to cancel the meeting, they tell us who did not respond or who would not be able to attend. So we count those as absence.
So, maybe unpopular opinion. I know some people really love committees and boards, but we've heard the same thing over and over many times from the same people. And our staff is, we've also heard our staff is extremely overworked all the time and understaffed, which I agree with. You're not gonna get them to do some of this committee stuff, to put the time and energy and effort into it if they're overworked, understaffed, because maybe they don't think it's a priority. I mean, Ms. Trammell just called out Steve as the one committee that does something. I don't know, is that an internal thing that city management needs to look at, of what our processes are on the requirements for the appointees that are in charge of these boards? I mean, me personally, it's not my job to track down all this and keep up with the people going to these boards. I get his report. If my person's not there, okay. I would hope Steve or Michael or somebody, Michael stays on me every once in a while about a position, but I got to keep up with my 3 kids. You know, I can't keep up with the 6 committee people I appointed as well. So maybe the staff, city management needs to look at a new process. I don't know. You know, I don't know if that's a council-led thing to rebuild the committees and boards stuff, but I don't put a lot of value in some of our boards and committees. I don't, personally, because I think they're not given clear direction. They're not given the support, whether that's because it's from staff or from us. I mean, I don't know. I haven't heard anything. So, you know, it's just kind of just lingering. It just kind of lingers, you know, and just festers, and we just keep revisiting it. But I'd love to do something, but I would look towards Larry or whoever else is in that position to maybe figure out how we can revamp this. Maybe that's something for them to do. Just my thoughts. Because it could be great, I get it, but a lot of people don't do it. I don't think we're making motions tonight, but
We'll be certainly be glad to look into it and meet with, staff that's manning those committees and find out what the dynamics look like and how we can make some
I mean,
improvements.
I'd love to hear their honest opinion. If some of them think
Absolutely, it's important.
If some of them think it's like, hey, we don't think, y'all should do this instead, please tell us. That way, then we could actually come up here and talk about that plan or idea and have that official debate, I guess. But it's just, I don't disagree with Ms. Trammell, but what are we gonna do?
Yep, I get it. All right,
Mr. Mayor,
anything else? Yep, Ray.
if I may also add, since November is election day, election, and come December, since you have 5 incumbents, you're going to have at least 5 people who would have to reapply.
Yeah,
Or
have a
you
new
can
system.
appoint different people.
Yeah.
All right,
All right, seeing no further, call
done.
done.